military analyst and retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. Colonel, thank you for joining us. As you hear Fred's report about tonight's explosions, talk to me about Russia's progress in encircling Ukraine. It has been called the Anaconda strategy.
Yes, Don, and I think that is actually a really good name for this strategy. So if we look at the broader map of Ukraine, we can see some really interesting things here, because if you see everything that's going on around the edge here, we're beginning to see an encirclement happening right there. So with that, you get a big idea that this is what they're trying to do. Now, when you look directly at Kyiv, you see some other things that are happening here. There's a lot of activity right in this area and in this area, and also some more in the western part of Kyiv. A lot of what the map doesn't show is that there are going to be a lot of individual engagements that are happening, particularly in the western part, the northeastern part, and the northwestern area of just outside of the city. So what those individual engagements will show is that the Ukrainians are moving forward into each of these different areas, and it really will depend on how well they do, whether or not this map changes in terms of where we see the Russian forces.
You know, I heard about this earlier. I found it really interesting about this flooding, this dam flooding north of Kyiv. The satellite images we have of this flooding at this dam north of Kyiv. We don't have reporting on exactly what has happened there, but Ukrainian forces, could they intentionally be flooding an area to slow down Russian forces, Colonel?
Absolutely, Don. And here's one of the things that we've heard a little bit about this before today. A few weeks ago, we started hearing some things about the Ukrainians deliberately flooding areas or in and around Kyiv. Well, this is apparently what they're doing. And if you take a look here at some of the imagery, you can see that the water areas have actually changed a bit in some of these areas. And in the area particularly north of the city, it makes the land much more muddy. And what will happen is, the idea here is that these floodings will actually create a mess for the Russian military. They'll bog them down literally and figuratively and make their advances much, much harder to execute.
Also today, the Russian military claiming that it launched more strikes with a hypersonic and cruise missile. Last night and even earlier today, they said they did it. What is your theory on why Russia is moving to that type of weapon, and is that concerning for you?
Well, it is concerning in the sense that this is a missile that is really undetectable. And here we have a MiG-31 that is taking off, and we have this photo and this video of them launching a Kinzhal missile. The Kinzhal, meaning dagger in Russian, is a form of hypersonic missile. The key here is the speed. It makes it undetectable and makes it very difficult for air defenses to take this missile out of the sky. Now, what we can do is take the platform out. So in this case, if they had taken them, which resulted in no missile being fired, or at least being fired errantly. So that's the kind of reason that this is a dangerous weapon, because it goes so fast and it's really hard to detect.
So east and south of where I am right now in Lviv, the port city of Mykolaiv is where Russian bombing may have taken the highest Ukrainian casualties so far in this war. I mean, this is very disturbing footage that we have right now of what was a military barracks, Colonel. Rescuers are still hoping to find survivors in that rubble. But witnesses say dozens of Ukrainian troops were killed in the bombing. Do you read anything into the location of this attack near the Black Sea and this port city? What does that say, if anything, about the Russians' battle plan?
Don, I think what it tells us is this. So Mykolaiv is right up here. And if you look at the map, you see it's just northwest of Kherson, which the Russians have taken. And then it is just to the northeast of Odessa. Odessa is Ukraine's major port city. It is the third largest city in the country, and all of the grain that, almost all of the grain that Ukraine exports goes through here. The Russian plan is to move west. It's got to be to move west toward Odessa from Kherson and the Mykolaiv area. If they do this, what they end up doing is they'll actually end up cutting the city off from the rest of the country. And the big goal that the Russians have is to move west and take over the entire coastline. And if they do that, that will end up actually making Ukraine a landlocked country. That's why this is important, and that's why this gets to be a major theater of this war.
Just one more question, Colonel. Would you have thought that Russian soldiers or troops would have done what they're doing earlier, at least trying to cut off certain cities? Because it doesn't appear that they have made much progress, if any, in this war.
That's right, Don. I would have expected them to move much more quickly. I would have expected them to go in, take the cities one by one, have a much more deliberate plan to go after each one of them, cut them off, encircle them, and basically subjugate them. They were not able to do this, and the reason they weren't able to do this is because, in part, the Ukrainians have put up such massive resistance.
All right, Colonel Cedric Clayton, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Pamela, back to you.
All right, Don, we'll be back with you soon there on the ground in Lviv, Ukraine. Thanks.